Solo.
Greedo.
Solo.
Greedo.
Solo.
Hey folks, Greedo here. It's the first episode of Greedo Solo, where I'm just talking by myself, talking to myself like a crazy person about Star Wars. And the title's appropriate today because I'm going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story, and the fact that all the other club members and every Star Wars fan I know and sci-fi fan I know is going to be going to see it on Thursday night, the preview night. Most of them is in a group together, except me, Greedo. I'm going to be sitting at home alone. Or I may go along and actually buy a ticket to a different movie and go and see a different movie while they're seeing it. I'm not sure yet. But I made the commitment after 40 years of going to see Star Wars movies on preview or opening night with friends and family and Cantina Club members. Made the commitment to give a pass on this one, skip this one, because of The Last Jedi. I know a lot of people love The Last Jedi. It's gotten good reviews, mixed reviews. People are entitled to their own opinion. I'm not trying to persuade anybody to hate it like I do, but I don't like it. And I think back to that Thursday night preview showing of The Last Jedi when myself and Gundark from the Cantina Club went to see it, and with a bunch of our friends. I was excited to see that movie, even though I had misgivings. The preview trailer was really cool. Ever since Celebration, we went to Star Wars Celebration, and I got a bad vibe about it, and some of the things that Mark Hamill was saying made me really wonder whether Rian Johnson got the character of Luke Skywalker and whether he was listening to his actor on that. And it turned out, there was no reason to get excited, and I should have listened to my misgivings, because I just remember sitting in the theater I don't even know how to describe how I felt seeing that. Disappointed at the very least, and just kind of shell-shocked. And it wasn't just because so much was unexpected in that movie. It was just unexpectedly bad. Everything about it was bad except for the visuals, the visual effects, the artistry that went into the look of it and the design of it. And all those people who did all those countless jobs on the movie did a great job. But I left the theater thinking, how come no one at Lucasfilm read that script? Whoever read the script at Lucasfilm, nobody stood up and defended Star Wars. They handed it over to Rian Johnson. He wrote a script in evidently like 2 weeks. And they just ran with that. The Lucasfilm story group just signed off on it. I guess it had their points that they wanted, whatever they were trying to get across in the movie, where it was in there enough for them. And they claimed it was a great script. Everybody just rubber stamped it and went on. Nobody at Lucasfilm read that or thought about it and had any misgivings. Nobody stood up for Star Wars and what a lot of us fans know Star Wars to be. And so I've had 40 years of supporting them. I know it's only been a few years under Disney now, but I've been to Celebration. I've been to every opening night, every preview night. Really been behind the franchise all the way, but I can't do it anymore right now. So I'm going to sit this one out. It may make no difference. But I just can't in good conscience just keep going along like a sheep and showing up every time they have a premiere, every time they put out whatever they want to put out, when I don't feel like they're listening to the fans whatever group of fans that I fit into, the ones that have been around, that were seeing the original trilogy in real time, that feel like we have a connection with the characters. And anybody who thought that Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi was a representation of that character at all, I just don't get it. You're entitled to your opinion. And I don't appreciate all the personal attacks that people get into just because certain elements of the audience were disappointed by that. And I also don't support personal attacks against people who enjoyed the movie for whatever reason. Like I said, live and let live. But it's hard for me to understand how any fans who have a long-standing connection to some of those characters, and even the new characters, if you're into the new characters and everything, how you could just fully embrace The Last Jedi, because it's so flawed. Luke Skywalker is the glaring flaw of the movie, but every single character really suffers in that script. Many of them are set back to square one. There's no development. And overall, they're all required to be incredibly stupid in order for the story to go forward, or the movie to plot to go forward. I say plot over story because it really was plot points and not much story there. And the excuses I've heard from Lucasfilm are that the story comes first. We're not going to cater to a particular character. We're going to write the characters have to come second to the story, and the story is everything. But there was no story in The Last Jedi. There's no story worth investing in there. It really was built around a couple of characters. So I don't believe them anymore. And when they say that, like when Rian Johnson says that he was a Star Wars fan as a kid and he grew up Luke Skywalker as his favorite character, I just don't know if I believe him. I have nothing against the guy. At Celebration, he came into the overnight line for the Last Jedi panel. There was thousands of people in there, camped in the Orlando Convention Center overnight to get good seats and to get into the room for the Last Jedi panel. He visited in the middle of the night and signed a couple of things for a few people, and people began going crazy, like, flocking around him. And he told everybody to calm down. He would stay until everybody had something signed or got a picture with him. And he stayed for a couple of hours at least. And all those people got an autograph or a picture with him, or both. And he answered questions, and he was really, really nice guy. So I have nothing against him, but I don't believe him anymore, or J.J. Abrams when they say they're Star Wars fans. It's easy to say that, but the proof was right there on the screen that I just don't believe any Star Wars fan would go the directions that both of those directors went. It started with The Force Awakens, with the opening words, Luke Skywalker has vanished. In his absence, the sinister First Order has risen. So they say it right in the opening paragraph, everything is Luke's fault. And after I saw The Force Awakens and people asked me what I thought, I enjoyed the experience, but as a fan of the characters, I was like, how are they going to explain this? My opinion of this movie has to wait until the next one, because I can't think of a good explanation for why Luke would vanish, and then in his absence all this, evil would rise. And no sense with the character of Luke that we went through the 3 movies with him and with the other characters, and we saw what we saw in real time. We spent 3 years between movies, reading, thinking about the characters, reading the books, interviews, articles. We saw in real time as our lives passed, we saw these characters develop, and they just took that away for no reason. I think J.J. Abrams, being the mystery box builder that he is, could not figure out what to do with Luke, and just punted. Just punted till the next film. Left it up to someone else. He had an idea for the First Order, which is basically just a rehash of the Empire. So the same villains are back with no explanation. We still don't know after 2 movies really who the First Order are, what they want exactly. I mean, in the most simple terms we know, but we know nothing about them. So that was punted. Why Han and Leia would split up over, Ben Solo and what happened there, that was punted. Who Rey was, that was punted. The most interesting character development there was Finn, because of a stormtrooper, becoming a real character. And that was dropped in The Last Jedi. That was the most interesting thing they could have gone forward with, and they completely dropped that. But anyway, all the characters in that movie are stupid, and they make nothing but dumb decisions the whole time. every single one of them. And people can complain about Princess Leia flying through space and the Porgs and whatever else you want to complain about. But basically, all the characters are dumb. And to sit there and enjoy the movie, you have to... It's not just escapism. It is insulting your intelligence. It definitely was insulting my intelligence the whole time I was watching it. And I felt like I had to just shut my brain off if I wanted to have any chance of enjoying this movie and accepting what I was seeing on the screen. That all of these characters are so incredibly stupid now. That's not development. That's really setting them all back. And anyway, as a second act and as a movie, to me it was an absolute failure and a catastrophe. And afterwards, I was kind of in a state of mourning about it, as silly as it is, because it's just a movie and it's just escapism. But to me, Star Wars is important, and the fact that they rejuvenated it, brought it back, gave me something to look forward to and to connect with again in the Star Wars universe. And I was hoping against hope it just would not be a colossal letdown. And they squandered the opportunity of having the original cast back. I didn't have unrealistic expectations. I didn't want them to be, swashbuckling heroes or whatever. They're all older. They could be in supporting roles, but they really just set all their characters back to where they started, and just insulted every one of them in order to tell the most basic story. They really took the least challenging route. And for people that say, I just wanted Luke to be the same as he was, or Superman, or whatever, that's not true. But the storyline they decided to go forward with for Luke was just the biggest cliche and such an easy out. When I saw The Force Awakens, I said, they're going to make Luke a bitter, alcoholic ex-Jedi who's afraid to come back because, it's like the same old story of the detective or the cop or the spy who was doing all this work, had these skills, never questioned, and then blew up a child, by accident, or shot a kid, or shot a woman or something, and then they become a drunk and and withdraw, and they need redemption all of a sudden. That's exactly what they did, in not so many words. That's what they did to Luke. Luke did not need redemption. Luke Skywalker is the one character, really the three original trilogy characters should never have needed any kind of redemption, a redemption arc. The only thing he needed redemption for is what they did to him in these last two films. And it's just made up out of the blue. It doesn't suit his character at all. I understand people change in 30 years, of course. But what they did was just wrong. And makes no sense. All to teach a lesson about failure. And Luke failed again and again and again in the original trilogy. Yoda even said to him, "That is why you fail." He's defined by his failures. He lost his hand. Everything he tries, he fails at until the very end. Until Return of the Jedi, basically. And the one shot on the Death Star, but Ben Kenobi was there to help him with that. And so you're trying to teach your protagonist, who's Rey. Yoda says, failure is the best teacher. Well, she never fails. Got 2 movies out of 3, and she hasn't failed yet at anything. Not one thing. So how is she supposed to learn that lesson if they won't let her? And how come every other character has to fail and learn that lesson except her? I'm just not on board with that anymore. And Star Wars kind of had a magic to it. And I felt like The Last Jedi tried really hard to bring it back down to Earth in a lot of ways, take away the magic. I don't know why you would take something that has some magic to it and try to make it common. Try to make it like everything else, but that's what I felt like the agenda there was, and they accomplished it. And also you could feel the real world starting to seep in to the plot, the dialogue, the characters. It felt manipulative. That's one thing I can't stand about movies, is when you can feel the manipulation going on. In a lot of ways, that's what blockbuster films are. They're very manipulative of the audience. That's what John Williams, built his career on, is informing you of how you're supposed to feel with the soundtrack. But there's a difference. we all sign on board, we get on board for those kind of things. When you're being manipulated in a way that you didn't expect, and that no one asked for, and that frankly doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in the setting, in the plot, nothing. And you feel this stuff creeping in. It really takes you out of it, gives you no chance to connect, with the Star Wars universe. And it's just bad. It's just a bad idea. I'm not one to go on about political agendas or anything like that. I don't care. I don't care about people's politics, about what they choose to write into a script. But it has to make sense. You can't... there's some people at Lucasfilm who said story first, story first. Well, are they getting story confused with, causes and with an agenda? Because if the story is first, then tell a good story. But it seems like the story is being structured around opportunities to, slip manipulative agendas in there. And I don't get it. It alienates a lot of people. And we could get into the whole thing, I won't, but they've been saying that, Lando's pansexual or could be pansexual. They're bringing up robot sex and stuff, droid sex, which is disgusting because droids are a servant class and you can erase their memories, so you can wipe their minds. So you can do the math on that, why that's disgusting.
Don't blame me. I'm an interpreter. I'm not supposed to know a power socket from a computer terminal.
Is there anything I might do to help?
We're doomed.
But anyway, Mark Hamill said in a tweet, someone asked him, is Luke gay? Or do you think Luke could be gay? And he said, if you want Luke to be gay, then of course he's gay. And what he meant there is that it is open to your imagination. Since Luke has never been defined totally in that way, although he really was in Star Wars, but there's some room there for people to project what they want. And there's something to be said to leaving things to the imagination. When you define a character that doesn't need to be defined, that never has been defined in its history, and you do it just to serve, to check a box saying we have a certain type of character now in our films, you're limiting how people can relate to that character. If it's all about people just projecting themselves and seeing an image of themselves in the movie, well, we're more intelligent than you give us credit for. If you want a certain character to have certain traits, you can use your imagination on that if it's undefined. Once they define it, it's really, 98% of the audience might not relate to that anymore. There's a lot to be said for leaving it up to the imagination. And it's just clumsy, manipulative, and just dumb to use old characters that have already been established and have years and years of history and years of people relating to them in a certain way, and just turn it on its ear for no reason. Just to check a box. So you can answer a question to the Huffington Post and seem cool, and with whatever their agenda is. So anyway, I've gone too far into the politics, but I have nothing against any of that. I just think it doesn't belong in Star Wars in such a clumsy, obvious, apparent way. And the more they pile it on, the more people are becoming offended or feeling like no one's listening at Lucasfilm. I mean, The Last Jedi, I've never heard anybody successfully defend that movie. They've tried, and they always end up attacking the critics and the people who don't like it. And that's just a sure sign that you cannot defend it on its own merit. If you're into that kind of thing, we all love movies that are flawed and that have plot holes. All the Star Wars movies have plot holes. But there's just a difference. We know when we're seeing a good movie and when we're seeing a bad movie. And The Last Jedi never, ever gave me the impression this was a good movie. I was just trying to get through it. I was just hoping against hope halfway through that it would redeem itself a little bit, and I would get out of there and hope that I'd have something to look forward to in the next one. As it turns out, no, I had nothing to look forward to. I left completely uninterested in the next movie, completely uninterested in this Solo movie,
Don't blame me.
and that's really unusual, really strange, because like I said, this has been decades long that I've been interested in Star Wars. Since a kid, my imagination was fully engaged, and it's strange to go in excited for a movie, and 2 hours, 15 minutes later, there's no excitement whatsoever left, and you're just kind of devastated, and something's taken away from you, and that excitement is gone, and the magic is gone, and I can't imagine that's really what they intended. So I hope somebody over there begins to take an honest look at these things, and begins to allow room for criticism and a room for a different voice, because what they're doing isn't working, and they've squandered an opportunity. I think the sequel trilogy will go down as just the biggest wasted opportunity almost in cinema history, because you had the original cast there. You still had them. Over 40 years, something is, a big cultural milestone like Star Wars, and a film milestone like Star Wars, and you blew it. You just, inexplicably, no excuse, you just blew it. And I'm not ready to forgive that yet. And I don't hate Lucasfilm. I'm not going to hate on new Star Wars movies too badly. I'll get over it eventually, but right now, they're not getting my support at all. I'm not, I've been there for them, not doing it right now. And it may make no difference, but it's the only way I can think of, besides writing letters and whatever else, to make my opinion, my voice heard. I think after all these years, it should be worth something. People like me and voices like mine should be worth something. They should be heard, and they should be counted. And if it comes down to counting the money, and that's the only place my voice can be heard, it may be just a tiny drop in a giant ocean, but I'm definitely going to control what I can control. If that's all I can control, so be it. And I hope the message gets through. Ultimately, I'm not a hater per se. Part of me wants this movie, the Solo movie, to be really good, entertaining. Eventually, when I see it, I want to see a good movie. I hope they made a good movie. I hope they did justice to the Han Solo legacy, Lando's legacy. Some of the stuff that's coming out isn't giving me a good vibe or filling me with too much hope on it. But the repercussions from The Last Jedi and what they did over The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi to the original trilogy characters, there has to be some accounting for that. And I'm not going to get distracted by some shiny toy they're flashing in front of my eyes and forget all about it. So, I'm torn because I've always wanted Star Wars movies to succeed so that we can get more. And a successful movie means it was probably a good movie, so I've always wanted good movies. I've always wanted them to succeed. The Last Jedi was a real blindsiding moment to where for the first time I'm rooting against the franchise I just love with all my heart. And it is heartbreaking. So part of me still wants Solo to be successful. I won't be destroyed if it does well. I don't have all of this, all of my personality invested in this. I'm not a big believer in boycotts per se, because I think it's kind of usually their hysteria and, bullying. And I just don't believe in those things. But in this case, I hope a lot of people stay away from the movie because it would probably mean they have feelings similar to mine. And I don't want to feel alone anymore on this, I just hope there's people out there who get it, that the reason I hate The Last Jedi is because I love Star Wars. And that was not Star Wars. And we waited a long time. I waited a long time for a sequel to Return of the Jedi. We thought Star Wars was over because we were told it was over. back in 1983, June of 1983, in our Cantina Club newsletter. One of the articles was titled "The End of Star Wars." So to have it come back and to wait 35 plus years to see Luke Skywalker speak a word in the theater again, and to be kicked in the teeth like that, wasn't pleasant. And I'm not paying them anymore to punish me and then act like it's my fault. You know, the fact I supported them all these years, it's my fault. And I just don't get it, and I'm obsolete. Maybe I'm obsolete, but I still just want to see a good movie. If that's obsolete, so be it. In conclusion, am I going to be truly Greedo Solo this weekend, the only Star Wars fan, original Star Wars fan, whatever you want to call it, sitting this one out? Are you planning to go? If you do go, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie. Recommendations whether I should see it or not would be greatly appreciated. And again, I'm not going to encourage a particular boycott, but I will say, if you are dissatisfied with The Last Jedi, if you think Lucasfilm is possibly going in the wrong direction and not really listening to feedback, honest feedback from fans, then what else are we supposed to do? It might be time to stand up for a different reason than just cheering for the latest trailer, cheering, mindlessly for the announcement of the next project. It might be time to stand up and stop accepting being spoon-fed stuff that is basically crap. If you line up and you keep going and you keep shelling out your money, whatever you see, you're going to get more of. And I saw enough with The Last Jedi. I don't want any more like that. I don't want any more Star Wars content like that at all. And I have to make my opinion known. I hope you do the same in whatever form is comfortable for you. And I hope that as a Star Wars fan, we can all be civil to each other and have a good discussion about it. If you have any recommendations about what movie I should go see, I haven't seen any of the new movies for a while. Or if there's something on Netflix you think I should be watching, or Hulu or whatever, Amazon, instead of the Solo movie this weekend, let me know. Thanks for hanging out with me for this episode of Greedo Solo. Ending transmission.